welcome to this week's podcast. And we are coming to you live from Florida Kids Therapy Services, where I'm Jen. I'll be your host. And we have the owner, Jessica Otto. Jessica, say hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Jen.
You got it. And then we also have Karie, who's one of our OTs at Florida Kids. Karie, say hello.
Hello.
And we're going to chat all about things OT today. So part of Florida Kids Therapy Services is able that we provide amazing OT services along with speech and physical therapy. So we have one of our amazing OTs with us today. So Karie, tell me a little bit about maybe what got you into OT in the first place. I've seen it firsthand in some of the clients I've worked with. So tell me a little bit about like what made you choose OT.
I'm probably very unique. I did not start as wanting to become OT. I kind of fell across it. I switched my major probably about 6 times. And then I drifted into rehab and I started as a PT. And I saw an OT work with a client who he was a paraplegic and he did not want to stay in like an adult supervision or like a daycare back 15 years ago while his wife went to work. And so he had to figure out how to feed himself during the day while she went to work. And so this OT found this old VHS, like it was a Disney movie cassette. And she came up with a rubber band and he slipped it on his hand. And he just needed to be able to have like wrist flexion and extension. And he was able to feed himself. And I was like, that's pretty cool. And I'd rather do that than walk 50 feet and go up the stairs. So then I did my hours in OT, but then I loved epidemiology. And I applied to both schools my senior year. And I figured whichever program accepted me first was what I was going to go with. And OT accepted me first. So then I went into OT.
I love that. And what an amazing story of like seeing an experience of OT and how it works in real life. Jessica, how many OT are on our team right now that service the schools?
We have 6 OTs on our team right now.
That's awesome. Do they all work like full time in the schools or do they do like private practice? How does that work?
So they're a range. So Karie is with us full time, and then we have OTs that range just working the hours they want to work. OT is a little bit different in speech in that the caseloads are a lower incidence. So there's less students usually that need OT on a specific campus. And so Karie, while she carries a full-time load, she's covering multiple schools. And that's very common for OTs to travel between schools to have a full caseload of hours. But the other OTs or CODAs are working the number of hours that they want to, which is amazing to have that flexibility. And it's neat to get to see caseloads grow. I can remember when Karie was starting and we were like, we barely have any hours for you. And it like kept growing and growing. And now Karie is supervising and carries a full load herself, which is just awesome to get to watch.
I love it. All right. Tell me, when you think about like working with schools specifically, right? Like the example that kind of got you interested in OT, it sounds like from an adult setting, but what are skills to be able to work in a school that an OT would need? Right. Think about like working like with like this, just a different demographic. I would think that patience is one of them when you're working with students. But tell me, like, what are some skills that would benefit someone working with kids in OT in the schools?
So I've done everything probably from 6 months to, I think my oldest patient was 101. And so I've done like everything you can think of. I'm a military wife, so I've moved all over. And I think that's helped a lot because it's not just having to deal with a corps of students, but having to deal with the adults as well, because I may have to deal with the parents. And there's some that I've been fortunate enough that Jessica's given me back to schools that I absolutely love, or I may have to fill in with other schools where I have to have that communication and the willingness to contact a parent, or if I get a phone call or say if someone gives me a heads up saying, hey, you know, these parents, they're very involved, and which I'm very parent myself, but very involved. They want to like know my assistant, I she had this amazing sheet that we provide the parents every week. What we do is we write down, these are the things that we did. And so we have to have that communication with the parents as well. And so I may have to call the parents. I have to talk to every teacher. I have to talk with a variety of children from kindergarten to eighth grade, or maybe even high school if I'm filling in for enough OT. But you have to have that whole branch of life. And so when you're in college, even though you may find it annoying to have that psychological minor in like 101, and then the birth, and then the mid-year, and then the adult, you need that lifespan, because then you also have to have that in your career as well.
Yeah, it sounds like, Karie, the skills is being able to communicate with all walks of life, just from the age range that you've worked with. High attention to detail, especially when working with parents who have high expectations of what these services are going to do for their children because it's so deeply personal to them, and a lot of empathy, right? Because you are walking into a situation where you're having to communicate with multiple stakeholders about this child and this child's care. I love that approach, and it sounds like your background is a good fit for it because you are comfortable working in a variety of settings to manage multiple parties, whether it be a parent, whether it be the student, whether it be the teacher or the principal, or, the security team when you walk into the school for the first time too. Is there anything you would add to that, Jessica?
Like I would ask, and the school-based level, what has surprised you about being an OT as a school-based OT?
Because I work in all 3 districts. I'm shocked because OT has such a wide scope of practice that I can't do my full scope of practice. And that is a struggle because I want to jump in so much and give my support, but I have to take a step back because I don't want to step on other people's toes as a profession. So all I do is, I have this great accommodation list, or I have this great research, or, I have this handout. Would you like it? And so I provide them with stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, I really want to do this, or I want to work on this executive functioning organization skill, but I know I can't do it because then it's double dipping. But most of my districts allow me to also attach myself to that goal. And so I can help with that aspect, but that would probably be one of my hardest things to do.
And that is really hard because in the schools, no matter what discipline, we are limited in what we're allowed to do. I know speech, the biggest is like oral motor therapy. We can't do oral motor therapy in the schools, but in private practice and medical and all of that, like it's a huge part of what we do. So yes, that makes sense to me. The OT, you have pieces that it's like, nope, that's not allowed in the schools, or it's done by somebody else in the schools.
You've talked to me about how within the school setting, you are managing this like relationship with the teachers, with the students, with the parents, having to communicate with them, writing on the daily forms. What do you wish that more teachers knew about OT, right? So like you are coming in, you're like, I'm an occupational therapist. And the teacher's like, huh? What do you wish that they knew about you and what you do to kind of help add value to them and their experience too in the classroom?
Depends. Sometimes I get teachers will say, well, they can't write. And then I look and they can write. It's just their spelling's atrocious. And that's not writing per se. That is more maybe like a sequencing, which OT does deal with sequencing, but that could be more language and ESC, or maybe it's phonics. That's not writing per se to me, because writing, I look at it as letter formation. Is it spatial awareness? So I look at that is like the biggest thing, because my writing ideal is different than what their emphasis is on writing. But then what they think sensory is different than what I think sensory or behavior. And so that's the other one.
So what you've just taught me is that the words and the language that you use are not all the same. So when someone says, my son can't write, you're like, well, maybe he can, but it might just be different. So like all these words have different meanings for writing and sensory issues versus like how you are handling it and approaching it from an OT standpoint. Is that, if I'm hearing that right?
Yes. I had one the other day and she said, oh, well, I can't, my kid can't write. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, does the A look like an A? And I was like, does the B look like a B? And I'm talking, I was like, if they're writing on a piece of paper, is it going across the red line? They're like, no, like the spelling, punctuation. I'm like, oh, I didn't work on that. And they're like, oh, but the kid had a 504. And I'm like, that would be more ESC. Like, do they know their vowel sound, phonemics? And she's like, what? And I'm like, I look at letter formation, making sure like the math alignment can be correct. Can they copy from the board? She goes, no, I don't have any concerns about that. So we were speaking two different languages.
Totally. So interesting.
With everything that you've just shared about what you notice with teachers, what are something that parents can do at home to help their children to improve their fine motor, or even when they're a little bit older and they're maybe struggling with the actual putting their letters on paper correctly? What can parents do?
So my kid we do old school games. We have every type of board game possible. He knows every type of card game possible. There's all this research that has come out that's saying, yes, video games, TV time, all that stuff. Everyone knows all that research, but it's a huge thing about convergence, divergence, why. So you may notice that when we're copying from the board, we're not used to the glare of the whiteboard anymore, or maybe it's the as soon as they get from the very top to the very bottom of the page, your eyes get really weak. And so then what happens is that they start writing really, really big. And so your eyes are muscles just like your biceps are. So you have to really work those muscles. And so then you need to start working on all those old school games that we used to play. And so my kid knows Garbage, which is a card game. Sequence is a good executive functioning multi-step direction. My kid, I'll tell him, you need to put all your clothes away, take your socks off. Like, for example, he went to soccer. So I'm like, you need to put your shin guards away in your backpack, take your clothes off, put it in the laundry, and go brush your teeth. So like multi-steps. And then all the fine motor stuff, like evaporation, we do Connect 4. I already brought up the Sequence. Sequence is a card game, so he knows how to shuffle. He knows how to do the bridge with the cards. He's a third grader. We do every type of game possible. It's all that socialization with us. We get to learn about his day, but then he gets all the fine motor skills too. And so it's just bringing back all the old school games in order to get him off the television and connecting us, but then also he has all the muscles in his hands, which then will help with holding the pencil correctly, even though that's not the biggest thing anymore, they said, but also, going back to the handwriting, being able to form the letters again.
I love bringing back the old school board games. I think that's a great, and I guess I've never thought about it. We just played Battleship, and you have to look up and down to figure out like where to put it, and then there is some strategy behind like hit and miss. So I love that as a great other tip. Any other tips that you would think might add value to the OT experience for a kid at home, and maybe like what helps them be successful at school?
So with the Battleship, I always do like the X and Y plot too. So when they get older, if they're doing math, it's doing the X plot and the Y plot. I talk about like the column and the rows, understanding what the column is and what a row is. That's the same thing that correlates back to the math as well. I will have my child if they're doing letter formation when they're younger, sometimes what I'll have them do is like we'll have plates around the house, or I will have them write on a vertical surface. So like we have like a window or sliding glass door, and we'll just use an expo marker, and then he just has to write or do math problems. That's a vertical surface. So that also helps shoulder strength. But then you're also just writing on a piece of paper. And so he thinks it's fun. And then you can just erase it. And then, you can use your finger and you can trace over it to erase it versus just using a normal eraser. And then we'll use pieces of paper or say like plates. And then I'll write something if he has to do like CBC words, which is kind of more like Jessica does. But then like we'll use darts or anything like that, or a ball, and he has to throw while spelling a word. But that works on that upper limb coordination. That works on throwing at a target. So that eye-hand coordination, strength, all that stuff. So we just make it more fun when they're younger.
I love those games.
He may not think it's fun, but I think it's fun.
And it just sets them up. Like, we did a training over the summer, the Ball of His X. And like thinking about that and remembering, and even my husband said, he's like, I played with the tennis ball every second of every day that I wasn't in school. I had a tennis ball and I was bouncing it and throwing it against the wall and doing all that stuff. And I did too. We had this terrible game that we played with our neighborhood, but you physically would get injured if you didn't catch the tennis ball. That was a part of this terrible kid game. And so I learned as a child how to catch a tennis ball, and watching both my boys and then watching the kids that I work with, it's like, oh my gosh, we need to be able to catch that ball and have the hand-eye coordination. And so, yes, I think that that's amazing. And think about that, and I'll be using it at home because they need that. And with kids I work with, that's so easy to incorporate and is so good to switch sometimes from speech being so cognitively challenging to do something motoric and physical can just really help them navigate, like, oh, we're doing something, I think it's fun, we're just not sitting, we're going to move. So that can be so good.
So Karie, last question for you. Obviously you've been working with Florida kids for a little bit now, and you've experienced all walks of life and a lot of different companies, it sounds like, in your moves as a military spouse, which same girl, same. So tell me, like, what is unique about Florida kids? What makes Florida kids stand out a little bit between other companies that you've worked for, specifically like in OT and helping in the schools?
With Florida kids, every year Jessica puts on like the beginning of the year meet and greet. And so she walks us through PowerPoint. She makes sure if there's any changes through the county, like what we need to be trained in. And we all meet. So I want to say like this year you added like what, 12, 15 new people probably, mainly like all SLPs. It was huge. But like what you said, they're sick OTs. So we're pretty like, we have a group chat going. Jessica also has a new like Google Doc. I don't know exactly what it's called, but a new thing where you can go online and like chat with everyone and you can select who you want to chat with. We also have like a group chat that we're labeled like Florida Kids Therapy OT group, and we can like change our names and stuff. So even though like OTs are usually by yourself with a school, and when you go to schools, we text each other. We will send pictures. Of course, we like block out the kids' names and stuff, but we text or call each other weekly and just get each other's advice. So even though we're by ourselves, because it's still small but a big company, we communicate daily, if not weekly, just get each other's advice. Because we're all from different backgrounds and we all have different opinions. So like I said something specific about this kid, and then the other OT brought up a very good point today, and I'm like, I would never have thought that. Like that's an idea. If we ever need anything, we just call each other. And then as well as if I had a question or say something arises, or if I can't, or sorry, if something arises, or if an IEP comes up and I don't know, or if I can't find it on our main Google Drive or anything like that, all I got to do is call Marlene or Jessica. And they're like, if they can't get to me, they literally will text me or call me, and they'll drop stuff and they'll go search for me and find me whatever I need. So I've never had that before at all. And every month they put on a dinner and we can go to it. It's never in the same location. I've tried multiple new restaurants, and I've lived here for 6 years. So I'm like, yes, I want to go to that one, or no, I don't want to go to that one. So they don't care if we show up. But I mean, I've never had a place that cares about their employees as much as Florida Kids. And
I love that. Obviously, Jessica, we're going to put a shameless plug in here that if you are looking for new opportunities, want to explore what it means to work with Florida kids, we'll put the link in the comments to our email address, so feel free to send us an email. So thanks for your time today, Karie and Jessica, to learn all of the things about OT in the schools, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Karie.
Thank you.